Sascha Penn. Next, we have the incomparable Wendell Pierce. We next have Mekai Curtis, who plays Kanan Stark.
Yes.
And finally, the legendary Patina Miller. Thank you all so much for chatting with me about this season 4 premiere. It is intense. Unique was supposed to be dead, but Joey Badass came to you and said, you know what, I don't really feel like dying right now. So how did that resurrection change not just the trajectory of this season, but of the show as a whole?
Right. I mean, it wasn't quite that simple. I'll be honest. He died, then he came back to life, then he wanted to die again, then there was a lot of back and forth with Joey. I think a lot of people sort of, you got a lot of smoke for that because people are like, oh, you made a choice just based on Joey's touring schedule, which was not what it was. But I think for me, that was a character that I saw a real long runway for. And Joey is a rock star, and we had always talked like, look, at a certain point. And then he loved the role. And I think in some respects, it changed his life, just like the show has changed kind of all our lives. And he's like, I'm done. And then it's funny, we were actually fitting him, we were making a model of his body for him to be dead. And he said he had like an out-of-body experience while he was doing it. He's like, I can't be dead. And then he came to me and said, can we figure this out? So all I had to do was rewrite the whole season.
The entire season?
Yeah.
And does his resurrection also alter how the entire show?
No, not at all. Not at all. But yeah, it was worth it. That's what I would say.
Good to know. Now for you, Patina, I think that we see Rock, especially in this episode, really, she's always been pragmatic about her feelings. She's always been like, we just have to get through and get done. But in this episode, we see her have an abortion, and she has that same, like, let's get through it, let's get it done. What has stuffing her feelings cost her personally?
I think it's cost her a lot, but also I think it's saved her in many respects too. You know what I mean? I mean, her being a woman in this world, working off of feelings, that was never going to get her anywhere. I mean, Neek says in the beginning of the show when they're going toe to toe, and he says something about she's a mother. It's different when you're a mother. He came from inside of you, and she's like, no, you have a kid too. They expect her to move with emotion, and she just doesn't. And I actually think that's quite interesting, and it saves her a lot. I don't think it's cost her as much as it saved her. I mean, obviously it's, but to the streets, at home, it probably wasn't the best idea to do that, so,
That makes sense. Now, speaking of, for you, Mekai, do you think that Rock and Kanan have officially reached a breaking point? Is there no coming back for them?
I think that's a thing that throughout season 4, throughout the entirety of the show, that's the overall question always. It's like, how far is too far? You know what I'm saying? We're telling a story about love. We're telling a family drama. You know what I'm saying? This is the inner workings of the relationship between a mother and a son, and what they're doing and what they're willing to put up with in the name of love, what they're willing to protect, what they're willing to hold on to. So that's the constant question that's being asked, and I think especially in season 4, we kind of peel back a little more into the whys of why that is the question, where we get to figure out a bit more if that actually is the truth. But I don't think I still don't think there's a full resolution to that just yet.
You're saying, well, I'm excited to see how it all pans out. Now for you, Wendell clearly knows something we don't know. Now for you, Wendell, so Snaps and Pop, they are these huge puppet masters. Like they're very fly, very cool, very even, but they're really pulling the strings, especially this season. So how are they benefiting from the animosity between Kanan and Rock?
Well, they see it immediately. That's the thing about our characters. We kind of see the flaws in people and always look for that place where we can take advantage. You know, however can this benefit us? It's like water seeking its level. And, you know, from the beginning, we see it's Shakespearean. You know, we know Rock. We go all the way back. You know, this is Hamlet and his mother. Mother, you have my father much offended. And we're like, okay. And it is the power struggle of the Scottish king and his wife, you know, tomorrow, Macbeth. And it's that, and we see that struggle, and we say we can take advantage of it. And that's the way we've made our living, and that's the way we do that with everyone. We can't talk about that because that's coming up.
They've also been around for a while. I mean, they have experience that I think they've seen stuff. You know, there's a great scene with Wendell and Patina and Erica, who plays Pop, where they're sitting across from each other, and Snaps basically says, "Look, you're reading from the book we wrote," and then Rock says, "No, everyone always says that." You know, and they go back and forth, but it is sort of, there is this generational thing that's kind of fascinating.
And it's in that scene where we say, we made the streets,
Exactly.
We paved the streets.
Yeah.
We literally paved the streets. So we know what you're going through.
Yeah.
So we just try to take advantage of it, and we see it, you know. But I just want to say that what they have created, I feel like I'm always a guest on this show. I was a fan of the show, and then when Sascha asked me to be a part of it, I was just so honored. But the thing that I've always said is, what they have created is something that is so unique and so should be applauded because it is rare that you see that in television. We don't have what they have created in any of the television shows out there, you know, and that family dynamic between a mother and a son, just a mother and a son. And I would dare say that Patina Miller is doing some of the finest work, not in television, but in television history. This is a defining role. This is a defining portrayal that attention must be paid. Attention must finally be paid.
So agreed. We all know, if you're fans of Power, what happens to Kanan. Like, we saw what 50 Cent sort of did with the character and what happens in the end for him. For you, Sascha, are there any Easter eggs or certain moments that we should be looking out for this season to see how his characters, we see the darkness, we see the sort of lack of care, the ability to sort of shift into this like monstrosity now that we didn't necessarily see in season 1 or 2. But what should you be looking for to see this full transition into adult Kanan? Because he is at the cusp of a true adulthood at this point.
I mean, I don't know that I would call these things Easter eggs necessarily, but I do think, you know, look, the relationship that Kanan has with Rock and with the rest of his family and with Jukebox, you know, one of the big questions that everyone seems to ask is, well, look at how close Kanan is to Jukebox. How could he possibly kill her the way he does in Power? And I'll tell you, we do give a full and complete answer to that question, for sure. But, you know, the Easter egg is basically like, well, this is how Kanan became Kanan. You know, this is how we all become ourselves, which is the people around us shape us, mold us, our experiences do the same. And I think, you know, I've said this before, you know, this notion of it takes a village to raise a child. Well, in this case, the village is Southside Jamaica, Queens, and, you know, Rock is his mother. So I think that's kind of what this has always been about, is because we all, you know, when I first pitched the show, I said, look, Kanan wasn't born the way he exists in Power. He had to get there. And what we're going to do is we're going to say what that journey looked like.
Now for you, Patina, we also see Rock's relationship with her own mother, Joyce, more this season. Joyce has kind of been a figure in the background, but she comes to the forefront this season. Do you see any similarities between their relationship and then Rock's relationship with Kanan?
Yes, I think the absence of Joyce in Rock's life the way she needed her to be is partly, I think, in my opinion, why the relationship with Kanan is the way that it is. You know, not having your mother in your life the way that you needed her to be is a lot for Rock, and she's had to deal with that, you know, where she maybe could have used her mother's ear or a hug or an embrace or love. She didn't get that. But I do think because she didn't get that, the love she has for Kanan is very strong. And she tells Kanan all the time how much she loves him. Yes, she lies to him. But, you know, Kanan doesn't wonder if his mother, I think, actually maybe, I'm talking too much. Maybe he does wonder now if his mother loves her. But she's really tried to tell Kanan, sorry, who am I talking to? She's really tried to tell Kanan that, like, I love you more than anything, you know, and I feel like if that was something that she had heard from her mother or her mother had been in her life more, then it could have changed the trajectory of her life and where she ended up. So there's a lot of animosity towards her mom, and she doesn't want to forgive her for all of the hurt and the harm that she caused. And I think in some way she blames her mother for how messed up her life is with her son.
Another thing that really struck me with this episode is that you see Kanan actually caring about something at school. So this is the first time that he's caring about something, but it's very specific. He's caring about a family project. Like he wants to learn more about his maternal grandfather. And he even goes to Detective Howard and asks questions, and he gets kind of shut down. Do you think that Kanan at this point is struggling with his identity, Mekai?
I think, again, that's a question that from the beginning of the show, we're kind of asking, or Kanan is asking. I think he's in a constant search in this village for, you know, what makes him who he is. He's gotten some of the answers through his mother, through his uncles, but there's still something missing. There's still, I think in the same way that Rock feels, there's a slight hole in her parental need, is the same sort of unknowingly hole that Kanan is trying to fill. And the excitement in getting to learn more about the legend of a family member, this being another pillar, another example of who Kanan comes from. You know, we're talking about Grandpa Elijah, which is, you know, this is the example Uncle Lou has, this is the example Uncle Marvin has, this is the example that Mom has. And to learn more about that, to learn more about himself, I think that's what makes Kanan care about the school, not the escalators.
That makes sense. For you, Wendell, you said prior to joining the show, you were a fan of the show. What has surprised you as a character who is in it, but kind of on the peripheral of the Thomas family? What has shocked you about that dynamic?
Well, the thing, I think as a fan of the show, and also my character, is the realization or the affirmation, reaffirmation of the fact that nothing counts so much as family, even when it's dysfunctional, because it is the most impactful conglomerate of people that's going to impact who you become and who you are. It is the best connection to your past as he goes through his journey of trying to figure out who his grandfather was. And they are going to be there in the present, have an effect on you in the present, whether it's good or bad, and most likely be there for you in the future. And nothing counts so much as family. And how that impact affects you is the thing that you have to be careful with. And that's the thing that I've noticed. It's like you sit there, you see the brothers, you see the mother and son, the mother and grandmother, and you really realize that this is a family drama. People will do anything to make a way out of no way when they don't have opportunity. That is still the most impactful group of people around you and in your life.
Yeah, and I would add to that, one of the things that's been really interesting and I think in some ways challenging about the show is that, and I think I can speak for everyone up here, is that as we've been going through this show, I think it's reflected back onto our personal lives in ways that were unexpected. You know, the complexity of the family on Raising Kanan in many respects reflects back, you know, my own life, and I think Mekai, Patina, I lost my father during this. Wendell lost his father. And you know, look, you guys can figure out for yourselves what I think of my mom. But no, I mean for real, like that's part of the journey that we have all taken collectively here. And by the way, it isn't easy. I'll be very honest, it's not easy. It's you do realize things as we've been doing this that have been intensely profound, and I have to say, even watching the episodes myself sometimes, I'm like, oh shit. Like, I didn't realize that about myself, and that's something I gotta figure out now. But it's a real thing. I think that's, when you do the work that these guys do especially, that's a huge part of the work, right, is finding it in yourself. And sometimes the places you have to go to find that, it's not comfortable. And it can be really, really hard. And so, as much as this show has suspense and action, you know, the real work is always going to be the emotional stuff, because if that isn't there, you're not going to believe shit that happens on the screen, ever.
Yeah.
One thing that really struck me about this particular episode, because it's from Unique's perspective, about how much perspective can shift everything. So how much did you have to think about that in sort of retreating back in time and writing this particular episode? Because he sees things very differently than what the audience sees.
Right, I thought there was like this really interesting opportunity to be like, well, here's the stuff you didn't see. You know, like, here's the scenes you didn't see. Because, you know, when you watch television, oh, we've seen everything. Then I thought there was this really interesting opportunity to dig deeper and look at it from a different point of view. And so that's what really intrigued me about doing this, right? Because this stuff is happening at the same time that other stuff happened in season 3. And there were, you know, the network was nervous at first, like, well, we haven't really done this. But, you know, I thought it was a real opportunity. Like, for example, you bring up Rock having the abortion. It's just a real interesting opportunity to dig deeper into the characters. And you know, when you're a writer, that's always the most fun.
It's just really cool, I think, to see that and to see this rage come out of this character, because we know what happened, but he doesn't see it that way. This episode is also, I think you talked about how much Rock is always telling Kanan, like, I love you, you can hate me, but I love you, Patina. So do you think she actually knows how to love?
I think she knows how to love in the way, I mean, sure. She knows how to love, like, that's a hard question, because, I mean, I think she's doing her best. I think, like, she literally is doing her best, you know, like, the way that she's been raised, the way that she left home at 15, and, you know, the people who showed her love, how she's been shown love with her mother, the people around her, the streets. I think she's doing the best she can, you know, and it's not perfect, right? Like, it's not the perfect display of love to Kanan, but it's her version of that, and I do think she tries, and I think that's what makes, for me, the character interesting. You know, I, in the beginning, wasn't really just interested in her being a queen pin, her being strong. I really wanted to see what else was there, and the love, and whatever we think of that love is, like, she is leading with that, right? It's not always right, but for me, it's interesting to watch a character have to battle through that, and she's grappling with all of these things. And for me, it, like I said, that's always the thing that I'm most interested in doing the opposite than what's on the page, or just, you know, her being a queen pin and being hard in the streets. But how can I make her fully three-dimensional and bring out all these different layers and different sides of her? So yeah, I do think she knows how to love. So I'll say that, yeah.
I think that's one of the things that's really attractive about her, because, you know, she has a real deep humanity and a real huge capacity for love.
Yeah.
And when she doesn't share that love, you know there's a reason for it. there's a wall that has come up, or there's some protection that she is protecting her own heart, right? But the thing is, you can always see that she has a huge capacity for love, and the reason she doesn't allow you to experience it is a good reason in her mind, a real reason, and that's the reason that you're drawn to her, because it's like a cautionary tale. If you're going to love, at what expense, right? What is the cost of loving someone, you know? And when should you not share that love? Because the cost is too high. Now that's the thing that I see. That's the journey I feel that I take with her.
It has a wonderful perspective, and I see that as well. Now for you, Mekai, I think Kanan has worked so hard to become more like his mother, more like Lou, more like Marvin. Do you think he likes who he's becoming?
I don't think, I think that's the interesting part in his arc for me, is it starts as this kind of like bright eye, what he's become at this point. I mean, you're seeing him grapple with this newfound depth, or this newfound understanding of the world around him, and what he's also been instilled and taught from day one, which is that huge capacity for love.
I love that. Now for you, Wendell, I'd love for you to share about the rapport that you built with Erica Wood, who's mostly your scene partner. She plays your wife, Pop, on the show. What kind of rapport have you guys built? Because their marriage and dynamic is so interesting to watch.
Well, we spend a lot of time building that rapport. It's a very
What?
It's a very detailed process of examination of the human spirit, and so one day on the set, one of the young women came up to Erica and said, Erica, are you cool with that? He said, well, he touching you and everything, we could go talk to the producers or whatever, And Erica said, no.
Whether Rock is capable of love or whatever. I think if you asked Rock, she'd say she's capable of incredible love. I think the question that the series poses is, how is everyone around her experiencing that love? Because most people, if you ask them, like, oh my God, I'm great at love. But the question is, are the people around you able to feel that? And I think that's sort of the question that really is fundamentally at the heart of the relationship between Rock and Kanan. Having said that, in terms of what to expect for the rest of the season, look, we keep trying to raise the stakes. I think the stakes will continue to be raised. The last few episodes are definitely, there's a lot of velocity there, a lot of momentum. There's a lot going on. If you saw the last episode, you know what I'm talking about. Tonight, Lamar Jackson is in the episode, which we're very excited about. Lamar. But look, I think there are certain characters that people have been waiting on. And what I can tell you is that, some of these characters, Crackle, for example, may appear. And look, it's the thing is, I get to work with the best actors in the world, in my opinion. And so what they bring is something I can't predict or expect, and they just bring so much. And I will second what Wendell said about Patina, as well as Mekai. I've been flying the flag for Patina for 4 seasons, as well as every actor on this show, and it has been, in my opinion, and obviously I'm biased, that we have not gotten the acknowledgement that we deserve. These actors, and to me, it feels like such an unbelievable oversight. I'm not going to sit here and decide why it happened or why it happens or whatever. Everyone can decide for themselves. But it's been, the best part is we really believe in the work, and at the end of the day, the work speaks for itself, and that's all that fucking matters. Having said that, this is a fraught time in our business, and these things do matter. It does matter, and it does affect people's lives. And so, look, I think, whenever we do one of these FYC things, and Wendell moderated it last year and spoke so eloquently, we ask you to really consider the people who are up here, and I know everyone here does, and acknowledge them for the work that they're doing, because it's meaningful for them, and it's meaningful for our business, frankly.
Really, I'm in an interesting position because I came to the show later and recurring on the show, so I'm able to be a part of it and be a fan and watch it. And what they have created is something that is absolutely stellar and absolutely some of the finest work in our business. And it's because of certain things that certain shows will get attention and other shows will not. I think it's important to realize, and I always make this example, as I said last year, I was on a show called The Wire. And The Wire got no attention. None. Not one Emmy nomination in its history. And then years go by and it's proclaimed as one of the best shows in the history of television. I feel like this is another show that should not suffer that same fate. I'm just going to say it. This show should not suffer that same fate. So I'm putting out a clarion call to you as people who are part of the business, who understand artistry, who understand that even though this may be so far away from who you are, the more specific a story is, the more universal it becomes. The more specific the story is, the more universal it becomes. There are people who will never even see New York City even, let alone, Queens, right? South Jamaica, Queens. But they will look at this and go, "Ever by the grace of God go I. I know what this woman is going through. I know what this young man is going through, because their humanity is so evident in the work and on the screen. And for that, they should be celebrated." Thank you.
And as long as I'm going to say one last thing, which is like, some people sometimes say, well, not that many people watch the show. As many people watch this show as watch the biggest shows on HBO. It's millions upon millions upon, it's 9-10 million people an episode. So it's not that the audience isn't watching, the audience is there. So, again, we can all decide for ourselves why the show hasn't gotten the shine that it deserves, but, we really appreciate you guys coming out. We appreciate Stars doing this, because it means a lot. And it means a lot, just, again, as I said, personally, but also in terms of the wider world, and the business. So thank you. And thank you, Ramadi, for doing this.
Thank you all. Thank you guys. I do want to say that you can catch the second to last. Tonight, at midnight Eastern Standard Time on the Stars app, all Stars streaming services, and on on-demand platforms. And don't forget to tune in next Friday, May 16th, for the explosive season 4 finale. Thank you all so very much.